The weight scale is very similar to the stock market. It's volatile. One day it goes up, only to go down the next for no rhyme or reason. It's just like the scale. One day you can step on it and it goes down and you are ecstatic. And I hear from clients all the time and they'll say, oh my gosh, the scale went down and I drank beer and ate my kids' fries. And I say, don't thank your lucky stars. Don't keep doing that because the result's not going to be the same. Or you step on the scale and you're devastated with the results. The scale goes up despite doing everything you should have. And maybe you say, gosh darn it, I worked so hard. And then you ditch the program out of emotional rage and purchase something different when it doesn't have anything to do with the program at all. I mean, how many times after seeing the stock market go down do people sell the stock, right? They buy high and sell low when optimally that's not what you want to do when you actually want to earn money. The same thing goes with the scale. Oftentimes the scale goes up, we get frustrated, and we ditch our consistent program. When really what you needed to do is stay the course, work on your emotional relationship with the scale, and overcome. It doesn't mean that you ignore the scale, but what it does mean is that you need to understand that weight loss isn't linear. There are specific patterns of loss. And today I'm going to talk you through that. I'm going to explain these different patterns so that you can get a better hold on what it might feel like to ride this roller coaster of weight loss and ultimately experience success. I'm also going to help you, most importantly, form a peak state relationship and peak state mindset with the scale, because this is the only way that you're going to be able to drop weight and keep it off long term. So I've seen all of these different patterns with our clients at PhD Weight Loss, and I want to explain them to you so that you can see if you fit within one of these.
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show.
So one of our clients, Brian, he had consistent weight loss each week. Lucky Brian. He was a lucky guy. He must have had good karma or something like that. And every week he dropped 3 pounds per week consistently. And so at the end of 20 weeks, he was 60 pounds down. Then we had Tom, and Tom was this stair-step pattern of weight loss. He dropped 5 pounds over 2 weeks, none for 2 weeks, 8 over a 2-week period, and so on. So over 20 weeks, he was down 58 pounds. So very similar to Brian, right? Then we have Josh, and he had a roller coaster pattern, which ultimately for a lot of people results in a roller coaster of emotions. For him, he went 3 pounds down, up 0.5 pounds, down 5 pounds, up 1 pound, and so on. But by the end of 20 weeks, he was down 59 pounds. So both Brian, Tom, and Josh all dropped about 60 pounds in 20 weeks. But as you can see, their pattern was significantly different. So what you need to understand is that weight loss isn't linear. It's not supposed to be, and it's perfectly normal to fluctuate. One day it will go up, one day it will go down, 1 week it will stay the same. And it's okay because we're looking for the trend downward. The trend downward is all that matters. That's what successful long-term weight loss is all about. Successful weight loss is really about having the discipline to stay committed to the process. It's about having discipline to stay true to yourself. So let's talk about why these patterns actually happen and the science behind them. And then we'll talk about how to establish that peak state mindset associated with the scale. One reason why weight loss isn't linear is because of the whoosh effect, and this can impact a lot of folks. The exact mechanism isn't clear, but it has to do with water retention, and it's caused by rapid changes in dietary habits, exercise, and water intake, and it's where the body just tries to maintain the specific level of homeostasis. The drastic changes that we make when we lose weight throws that off for the body. And it's a compensatory mechanism to give the body time to balance. And so what you want to understand is that when you're going through weight loss, you might be burning fat, but still holding on to fluid. An interesting thing is that we store sugar in the blood as glycogen in the muscles. So let's say that you drink a cup of juice. It's going to be metabolized in the body as sugar molecules, and it goes into the bloodstream. The body doesn't like to have a lot of sugar in the blood, and so that sugar is going to be pulled out, and it's going to go into, for example, our muscle cells, and it's going to be stored there as glycogen. With every molecule of glycogen that we store in the muscle cells, we also store with it 3 grams of water. So it's actually pretty heavy to store the carbohydrates in the muscle and the liver. And when you are dropping weight, you're burning some of this glycogen. And this whoosh phenomenon could be, one idea, is that you're burning this glycogen, but it takes a little bit of time to release the 3 grams of water that is stored with it. For a few weeks, you don't see any weight loss, and then all of a sudden you have this whoosh effect where all of the water is released. So that just means that you need to hold on because your whoosh might be right around the corner. A second reason why weight loss might not be linear is because of our hormones. And we know the menstrual cycle for us ladies can impact our weight loss significantly. It's normal for us to hold on to 2 to 6 pounds of excess water weight a few days before the start of our cycle into about 3 to 5 days after the start. Usually this is water retention due to increased progesterone levels and the body just compensating for the shift in hormones. Also, because of the shift in hormones, specifically progesterone, we can have an increase in constipation and bowel regularity shift, which can represent as more weight on the scale. So when you're going through your menstrual cycle, you do have to watch that this weight is water weight and not due to just eating more because you've got more cravings. And so you want to be prepared for the increased cravings when the menstrual cycle happens if this affects you. You can do this by increasing protein. So if you have more cravings during your menstrual cycle, eat a little bit more protein. If you're not eating a mid-morning snack or you're fasting through breakfast during your menstrual cycle, you might consider adding that breakfast or mid-morning snack back in. You want to make sure that you take time for yourself and get outside during your menstrual cycle. Other hormones that shift decrease that feel-good neurotransmitter dopamine and serotonin. And ways to naturally increase that is to get outside, see the sun, take more time for yourself. So increase the amount of protein that you're consuming, make sure that you're eating breakfast and maybe a mid-morning snack, and then taking time for yourself. A great book that I recently finished is called Wild Power, and I suggest that you ladies read it, and it takes a different perspective on how we should be treating ourselves during and after our menstrual cycle. So in general, from a hormone perspective, it has to deal with water retention and appetite changes. Other hormones that can impact our weight loss patterns are cortisol and insulin. I've talked about cortisol and insulin in a lot of previous episodes. If you live a super stressed lifestyle, you want to check out my episode when I talk about stress specifically so you can understand how to manage and how to overcome that. In general, cortisol blunts fat burn. So if you have a few weeks where your stress levels are low and then all of a sudden you're super stressed, you could see that your weight loss slows down or stalls, and it's all because of this hormonal shift, which can also increase cravings, and then we can ultimately not be adhering to our meal plan, eating more, and seeing inconsistent weight loss. High fasting levels of insulin also impacts our weight loss speed. If you are pre-diabetic or diabetic and you got a lot of insulin in the body, then you can see that the weight loss could slow down or could stall. If you've got low testosterone, that's going to impact your overall weight loss speed. It's not going to necessarily result in these different patterns and swings, but it is going to make weight loss maybe a little bit more challenging because your body's not going to be supporting an optimal body composition, and you're likely going to have a bit more struggle maintaining your muscle mass if you've got low testosterone, and this is both for men and for women. Another reason that weight loss might stall for some weeks and then speed up is just to your overall adherence to your plan during tough weeks. So if you've got one of these patterns like Tom or Josh, where they have the stair-step pattern or the roller coaster pattern, and you really get emotionally distraught by the scale going up when it doesn't make sense, and then you give up on your meal plan for those weeks, it's going to be really difficult. So as you're dropping weight, having a resilient mindset and consistency with your meal plan, even through those challenging weeks, is the key to success. The fifth reason why your weight loss might not be linear is because of metabolic adaptations. Your body does adapt and gets used to what you're doing, specifically around exercise. So if you haven't shifted up your exercise throughout your weight loss program, it might be time to do that. So let's say you're walking 30 minutes every day briskly. This is generally what we suggest for our clients at PhD. At some point, that might not be enough. You might need to start doing some kind of resistance training or some type of high-intensity interval training, nothing intense, but just enough to vary that so that your metabolism has to compensate and as a result, start dropping that weight again. Hey, really quickly, if you feel you need additional support for your metabolism and blood sugar levels while dropping weight or maintaining your weight loss, I created a capsule just for that. It's called GLUCOCUT+ and contains industry-leading ingredients to help burn fat, support your thyroid, and maintain lean muscle mass. Visit dr.ashleywellness.com or click the link in the description if watching this on YouTube and use code ASHLEY10 for 10% off your first purchase or 20% off your first subscription order plus free shipping. And enjoy a 30-day money-back guarantee. Back to the show. Another reason why you might not drop weight consistently or have this roller coaster or stair-step pattern or even a pattern that I haven't mentioned is due to individual variability. Your genetics really impacts the way that you drop weight. It's not a death sentence, but it is a wake-up call to acknowledge that this impacts your body and your metabolism. Hormonal factors like I mentioned, and then just lifestyle in general. So let's say that you work at night or you have shift work, that can significantly impact your body and the hormones that it's secreting, which then impacts the weight loss patterns. If you work at night, that's going to mess with your circadian rhythms. It's going to increase cortisol. And we talked earlier about how cortisol helps to blunt fat burn. So there might be periods of time where you're working through the night and then you shift where you are having a regular daytime schedule. You might see during the regular daytime schedule that your weight drops consistently and significantly. And then when you go back to your late night shift work, it stops. And that's okay. You just have to understand that your lifestyle does impact the way that you drop weight. Other reasons that you might see weight loss go up one week where it just doesn't make sense and down another week where it also doesn't make sense is if you had a big meal before you go to bed late at night, that could allow you to wake up and be heavier on the scale. If the food that you consumed the prior day is high salt, high carb, again, if you have high carb and high salt meals, you're going to store those carbs with water, and then the high salt, high sodium is also going to store as water. So you just have significant water retention and you're bloated. Bowel regularity can impact weight on the scale and the specific types of exercise that you're doing. When you exercise, what you're doing is basically tearing apart the muscle fibers, which is a part of the process to becoming stronger. You tear apart those muscle fibers, and then part of the rebuild makes those muscles stronger. Also, as a part of the rebuild process, you hold on to water. The muscles need water to help rebuild and repair. So it is not uncommon for us to see men who participate in CrossFit, for example, or some kind of intense exercise where their muscles are sore, holding on to 7-10 pounds of excess fluid as a part of that repair process. And then I've mentioned this before on previous episodes, but as we drop weight, the body wants to compensate for that. It doesn't necessarily like to drop weight, although we want it to, and it's healthy in the long run. The process of it knocks the body out of this sweet homeostasis that I mentioned during the whoosh effect. And one of those ways that the body compensates is it reduces NEAT. And NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And those are just the types of movement that you do that you don't even recognize. It could be like twitching your foot while you're sitting there. It could be moving your hands while you're sitting down. It could be going up and down the stairs and cleaning the house during the day. It could be mowing the lawn, all those things that you don't think about as activity that actually burns calories. So as you're dropping weight, naturally the body compensates by lowering the levels of NEAT that you're participating in. So one thing that you could pay attention to is keeping that NEAT high. And you can do that by wearing a pedometer or a Fitbit or something that measures how many steps that you're taking during the day, and trying to be consistent day in and day out on that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, on those ways of burning calories throughout the day, doing things that you don't think of as exercise. And then lastly, certain medications, certain drugs, and if you are drinking alcohol, that can slow weight loss as well. You might see on weeks that you don't drink alcohol, your weight drops consistently. And on the weeks that you enjoy those adult beverages, the weight loss stops or slows or even pops up during some of those weeks. So adhering to your meal plan and staying consistent and staying motivated, disciplined during those weeks where the scale goes up, during those times that you're frustrated, is the key to seeing successful long-term weight loss success. So now let's talk about how to develop a peak state mindset around the scale. And there are 5 steps that I want you to focus on. Number 1 is I want you to ditch the specifics. I want you to shoot for a range and not a specific number on the scale. And this is what we do for our PhD clients as well, is we want to focus on a range for optimal weight. So for example, let's say your target weight is 150 pounds and you set that for yourself and you don't allow yourself to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower. It has to be exactly 150 pounds. That is going to result in insanity and a lot of crazy emotions and devastation when you don't hit that number day in and day out. Remember that it's totally normal for the body to fluctuate. And so if 150 pounds was my goal, I would give myself a range, probably about 5 to 8 pounds. So I'd say 148 to 155 pounds is my sweet spot, and I want to be within that range. For most women, I recommend a range of about 5 to 7 pounds. And for most men, I recommend a range of about 8 to 12 pounds. And you stick within that range. If you pop up above that range, then it is like an emergency sound, a bell where you want to recognize you're creeping up. Because remember, from my previous episodes, I talk a lot about visceral fat, that belly fat, and how if you've got that belly fat, all it wants to do is continue to grow. So for our clients at PhD, we're focused on fully collapsing that belly fat so that there's not a high risk of weight regain. And we do take that weight range seriously. And anything above that, we want to catch and error correct early on to get right back within that sweet spot that's easier to maintain. That sweet spot, that range, is a place where the metabolism is much more fast and efficient. And so you're going to shoot for that range, ditching the specifics. Then what I want you to do is I want you to write down a bunch of reasons why weight loss isn't linear. You know these reasons, we just talked about them, so get out a piece of paper and first write down the range for your optimal weight. And then number 2, write down the reasons why weight loss isn't linear. It could be the whoosh effect, it could be hormones, it could be menstrual cycle, testosterone, cortisol, insulin. We talked about adhering to your plan. It could be metabolic adaptations where you need to shift up your exercise. It could be your genetics. It could be your lifestyle. It could be specific drugs, medications, alcohol, all these different things. I want you to write down the reasons why. And number 3, what I want you to do is write down any current thoughts that you might have toward the scale, like, oh my gosh, I hate this thing. It is my enemy. It is not my friend. Another thing that you might be saying to yourself around the scale is, I'm working so hard to make a change and the stinking scale isn't showing me what I want to see. Another thought might be, what am I doing wrong? Or maybe I won't ever get where I want to be. So write down all of those thoughts that you have toward that scale. No one's going to see it. It's just for you. And then right next to your current thoughts, I want you to write down your peak state responses. So here are some examples to get your juices going. So in response to, I'm working so hard to make this change, the stinking scale isn't showing me what I want to see, a response might be, I'm working hard and change takes time. Or I'm noticing many other changes, how my clothes fit, I'm getting stronger, and my mood and energy levels are improving. Might be, I'm reversing my type 2 diabetes, my A1C is lowering, and I'm on half of my high blood pressure medications. It could be, I'm noticing more than just the number on the scale. I can walk up and down the stairs without my knees hurting. A peak state response to, what am I doing wrong? Might be, I'm just doing many things right for the right reason. Just because the scale isn't moving doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong. I've got to be patient. I've got to be consistent. And in response to, maybe I won't ever get where I want to be, you could say, I've done many different things to my body in the past with diet and exercise, and it's time to find what serves me best. Or I've dropped weight in the past, I've done it before, and I can do it again. Or anything's possible, I'm committed to this positive change. So you write down, in response to your current thoughts, what your peak state responses would be. Hear my voice in your head. What would I tell you? What would you tell someone who you love in your life how they should respond to these current thoughts? And then the last step is I want you to determine a list of 10 things you can do after getting on the scale that allows you to refocus on the day ahead and disengage with the emotions, be it good or bad, that come with the weigh-in. So, for example, get a cup of coffee, go for a walk, walk your dog, read a book, listen to your favorite music. Whatever that might be, I want you to come up with 10 things you can do after you get on the scale. I want you to keep this page that you just jotted down in your journal, and I want you to name it your pre-scale routine. And I want you to read 1 through 5 before you hop on the scale. Also, I really encourage you only to weigh yourself once per week. Weighing yourself every day just creates needless anxiety, and you're going to see those fluctuations. So again, the goal is just to trend 1 time per week for your weigh-in. And before this weigh-in, I want you to read your pre-scale routine. Now, for the next 2 weeks, what I would love for you to do is to cover up the number on the scale before you step on it. So for 2 weeks, you're not going to know what your number on the scale is. So you cover up that number, and before you step on the scale, you read your pre-scale routine. And after you hop off the scale, you go do one of those things that you noted down that you can do to refocus your energy on the day ahead. What this does is it builds new neural pathways in the brain without heightened emotions. After the 2 weeks of this practice, you can take the sticky note off of the scale so you can actually see the numbers and still read your pre-scale routine. Hop on the scale, see what those numbers are, and then do one of those items to disengage from the emotions of whatever the scale shows you. Now, as a result, you might still be having a current thought. And a current thought that you might be having is something like, this will take too much time, it's not going to work, I've had 35 years of a bad relationship with the scale and there is no changing this. However, a peak state response would be, there's no choice. If I want to drop this weight and keep it off for good, I've got to change my relationship with the scale because weight loss isn't linear. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to drop your comments below. Have you ever attempted a pre-scale routine like this? Also, let me know what your biggest struggles are around the scale and around weight loss patterns in general. I hope that this episode really helps you to overcome the frustration that roller coaster and stair-step patterns of weight loss can create. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, please leave a review. Remember, you've got to step up to make this change. Lead with your heart. Train your mind and do not negotiate with your body. See you next time.